agreed. He wrote in the New York Times, let's get vote at home in place in all 50 states. But that's not what this amendment does. It simply says, let's see what works and doesn't work. Let's make sure that if those states are transitioning to vote by mail or are trying to improve their system, that we have a sense of best practices. That's it. So again, I thank the gentlelady for yielding and urge support of this amendment.
Does the gentlewoman yield back?
I yield back now for my time.
The gentlewoman yields back. Is there further debate on the amendment?
Sorry.
Does the gentleman from Florida insist on a point of order?
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw the point of order.
The question is on the amendment from Mr. Kilmer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
I'd ask for a recorded vote, Mr. Chairman.
A roll call vote is requested, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Mr. Stile?
No.
Mr. Stile votes no. Mr. Loudermilk? Mr. Griffith? Dr. Murphy? No. Dr. Murphy votes no. Ms. Bice? Mr. Carey? No. Mr. Carey votes no. Mr. D'Esposito? No. Mr. D'Esposito votes no. Ms. Lee? No. Ms. Lee votes no. Mr. Morelli?
Aye.
Mr. Morelli votes aye. Ms. Sewell?
Aye.
Ms. Sewell votes aye. Mr. Kilmer?
Aye.
Mr. Kilmer votes aye. Ms. Torres?
Aye.
Ms. Torres votes aye. Mr. Loudermilk? Mr. Griffith? Ms. Bice?
Does any member wish to change their vote? If not, the clerk will report the tally.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, there are 4 ayes and 5 noes.
The amendment is not agreed to. Do any members seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk regarding the Blue Ribbon Advisory Panel for the Federal Election Commission.
The clerk will distribute the amendment. Clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4563 offered by Mr. Kilmer of Washington. Insert after
Without
section.
objection, further reading, the amendment will be dispensed of.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve a point of order.
The gentlewoman from Florida reserves a point of order. Mr. Kilmer is recognized for 5 minutes in support of the amendment.
I got 2.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This again is related to the Federal Election Commission and just trying to get the cop back onto the beat to make sure that we have an entity that is able to enforce campaign finance law and is consistent and consists of people who know something about campaign finance law. This does not sound like a novel concept, but right now, the means through which Federal Election Commission commissioners are appointed is largely handpicked by politicians. So here's what this amendment does. It would ensure a fair and impartial and bipartisan process for selecting Federal Election Commission nominees. Right now, there aren't very many qualifications for what it means to be a Federal Election Commission commissioner. That is concerning, so this tries to flesh that out a bit, but it establishes an advisory panel, a blue ribbon commission, to provide recommendations of potential nominees. The advisory panel would be bipartisan. It would be required to include individuals representing each major political party and individuals who are independent of a political party. It would consist of retired federal judges, former law enforcement officials, or individuals with experience in election law. Simply put, this is about trying to ensure that the people who serve on the Federal Election Commission, who are nominated to serve on the Federal Election Commission, know something about federal election law. I do want to point out, Section 356 of the ACE Act does address a recruitment and retention concern of the Federal Election Commission. For example, to find and retain qualified candidates for the FEC by increasing the commissioner's pay level to be competitive for government service. That's a good thing to do. But we've got to get to this. We need to have a functioning Federal Election Commission. and it should consist of people who actually know something about election law. That's what this amendment's about. I will mention that this is part of a bipartisan bill, the Restoring Integrity to American Elections Act, that I am the lead sponsor of, and Congressman Fitzpatrick is a co-sponsor of. And it has been bipartisan for 10 years. Again, I would just urge support of this bill and hope that we can, of this amendment, and hope we can move it forward.
The gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would note that the